folks, we're here in Heidelberg, the most amazing city in the whole wide world. Alright, yes, I might be biased here because I grew up in this region, but Heidelberg truly is a lovely city with lots of interesting history and historical buildings. We have so many things to see and do here, so let's go ahead and start the tour. Heidelberg is located in the southwestern part of Germany in the state of Baden-Württemberg, just about an hour drive south of Frankfurt. It's actually really easy to just catch a train from the Frankfurt airport and get to the city center of Heidelberg. Also, keep in mind it's only about an hour drive to the French border, so definitely worth considering crossing the border whenever you visit this area of Germany. We start the walking tour at the west end of the Altstadt, the Old Town, and walk along the mile-long main street named Hauptstraße, with its many stores, restaurants, bars, and old historical buildings. We'll make several stops along the way, including the old bridge, have a schnitzel and beer at my favorite brewery, and of course go up to the castle via a pretty cool funicular railway. Heidelberg has about 160,000 inhabitants, making it the fifth largest city in the state of Baden-Württemberg. While it's a much smaller city than Berlin or Munich, it still attracts some 12 million visitors per year. As we walk through the Old Town, I'll talk about the history of Heidelberg and show you some interesting buildings. Going way back more than 200,000 years ago, the so-called Heidelberg man, or Homo heidelbergensis, died at the nearby village of Mauer. His jawbone was discovered in 1907 and his remains were determined to be the earliest evidence of human life in Europe. In the 5th century, the village Bergheim, which translated means mountain home, was first mentioned and it was located where Heidelberg is today. Fast forward to the year 1196, which is when the name Heidelberg was first mentioned in a document from a nearby abbey, and therefore the year 1196 is considered Heidelberg's founding year. During Nazism and the World War II period, Heidelberg was a stronghold of the NSDAP, the Nazi Party. During the Kristallnacht on November 9, 1938, Nazis burned down synagogues at 2 locations in the city, and the next day they started the deportation of Jews, sending 150 to the Dachau concentration camp. If you want to learn more about the Dachau concentration camp, check out my video linked on the top here and also in the description below. In March 1945, as the war was winding down, the US Army arrived in Heidelberg on March 30th and the civilian population surrendered without resistance as the German troops had already left the day before. Unlike many other German cities, Heidelberg was spared from Allied bombings during the war. Air raids focused more on nearby industrial cities Mannheim and Ludwigshafen. Heidelberg also had untouched Wehrmacht barracks, which the US Army took over, naming it Campbell Barracks. US General Patton actually died at the Heidelberg US Army Hospital in 1945 after being involved in a car accident in nearby Mannheim. The Campbell Barracks were home to the US military until the year 2013. Here we see the Providenzkirche, which was built in 1659. The church was destroyed during a fire that ravaged through the city during the War of Succession in 1693, but was ultimately rebuilt in 1715 to 1721. Alright, now we're going to briefly leave the main street, the Hauptstraße, and turn right onto the Friedrichstraße. This takes us to the backside of the Heidelberg's theater building, which dates back to 1853. The reason I recommend walking along the backside of the theater is that you can see the props department. I think it's pretty cool and unique to get an idea of what goes on behind the scenes of a theater. And here we are now on the front side of the theater. Walking straight ahead takes us back to the main street, the Hauptstraße. At the corner here you see the Käthe Wolfahrt store, which is a popular store for all kinds of Christmas decorations. The store is located at the Universitätsplatz, the University Square. As we continue our walk, I'll talk about the Heidelberg University, which was founded in 1386, making it Germany's oldest university. On top of that, Heidelberg's library, founded in 1421, is the oldest existing public library. Historically significant literature has been written and collected in Heidelberg for over 700 years, and Heidelberg has been named the UNESCO City of Literature. Besides the university, Heidelberg is home to several internationally renowned research facilities such as several Max Planck Institutes and the European Molecular Biology Laboratory, making the city a scientific hub in Germany. Based on the history, I think it's obvious that Heidelberg has played a crucial role in science and education, and to this day the university is one of Europe's most reputable universities. We made another right turn from the Hauptstraße into the Gasse, and in the distance you already see the Jesuit Kirche, the Jesuit Church. Construction of the church started around 1711 and the first phase lasted until 1723. It was not until 1749 that construction resumed thanks to the generosity of Elector Karl Theodor. The work dragged on until 1759. After the abolition of the Jesuit order in 1773, its institutions were taken over by the Lazarists from 1782 to 1793. In the following years, the church served as a hospital until 1809, when it became the parish church of the Catholic Community of the Holy Spirit, which it still is today. We walk back to the Hauptstraße and ultimately get to the most well-known church of Heidelberg, the Heiliggeistkirche, the Church of the Holy Spirit. This is a late Gothic church located at the marketplace of the Old Town. The church has been shared by both Protestants and Catholics over the years, and today it's exclusively used by Protestants. It was rebuilt after the French set fire to it in 1709 during the War of Succession. The marketplace itself is a great spot to sit outside and enjoy a drink. It's a really cool setting, finding yourself surrounded by all these buildings and the church, of course. Here we are getting to the backside of the church and we'll make a right into the Steingasse. And that's where you find my favorite brewery in Heidelberg named Käthe. I highly recommend you go here for the food and, well, the beer of course. By the way, here on the wall it states, "The mayor announces that beer will be brewed on Wednesday, and because of that, it is forbidden to shit into the stream starting on Tuesday." You just gotta love the Germans, right? Once you've refueled, continue further down the Steingasse to get to the Karl Theodor Bridge, often referred to as the Old Bridge. It was built from 1786 to 1788 by the Elector Karl Theodor. On the Old Town side you see this medieval bridge gate, which was originally part of the town wall. The Baroque tower helmets were added as part of the building of the bridge in 1788. On March 29, 1945, one of the last days of the war, German soldiers blew up the Old Bridge. With the help of a fundraising campaign supported by the citizens, the reconstruction of the bridge began 1 year later in March 1946, with the inauguration taking place in July 1947. There are two sculptures on the bridge. One is Elector Karl Theodor and the other one is the Roman goddess Minerva. It's obvious why there is a sculpture of Karl Theodor since he built the bridge, but why the Greek goddess? Well, Karl Theodor was a big proponent of advancing art and science. Minerva is the Roman goddess of wisdom. The sculptures depicted on the pedestal around the monument symbolize the most important rivers in the territories ruled by Karl Theodor, Rhine and Mosel, as well as the Danube and Isar. See more about the Danube and Isar in my Passau video linked on top of the screen and in the description below. The river you see here is actually none of those rivers. This is the Neckar, which mainly flows through Baden-Württemberg, the state Heidelberg is in, and a short part goes through Hessen, a neighboring state. From the bridge you already get a nice view of the castle up on the Königstuhl, the king's seat, which is a 567-meter high hill. We walk back through the Steingasse and make a right into the Untere Straße, We are actually backtracking a bit here, but this is the street where you'll find many bars and places to hang out and party the night away. I definitely frequented this area a lot growing up, and walking through here sure brings back a lot of memories. It's essentially a place where the locals, the students, and the tourists meet. Always a lot of fun, so if you want to immerse yourself into the Heidelberg nightlife scene, definitely go here. By the way, while this street is officially called Untere Straße, locals refer to it as Untere Gasse. Until now, I actually did not even know it was called Straße. Straße is the German word for street, and Gasse is alley. Alright, we are now back at the marketplace along the Hauptstraße. We turn around and get to the Kornmarkt, another old town square very close to the castle. And this is where we'll actually get onto the Heidelberger Bergbahn funicular railway, which takes us up to the summit of the Königstuhl via the castle. The times of operation depend on when you're visiting, so make sure to check, and I actually have a link down in the description below. The funicular railway dates back all the way to the year 1890, and of course it's been modernized over the years, and while it's the longest funicular railway of its kind in Germany, the ride only takes a few minutes and is a pretty cool experience in itself. If you just go up to the castle and not all the way to the summit like I did, it's €9 per adult, which includes a round-trip ticket for the train, admission to the castle courtyard, the barrel cellar, and the German Apothecary Museum. Alright, let's start our tour of the castle. Undoubtedly, it's the most important and well-known landmark of Heidelberg and the epitome of German Romanticism. The castle attracts around 1 million visitors from all over the world annually. The red sandstone walls of the castle tell the story of destruction at the end of the 17th century, its slumber in the 18th century, and the beginning of tourism under the sign of the Romanticism of the 19th century. At this point, I want to point out that the castle surroundings and garden area, which offers some amazing views, can be visited free of charge. Rather than going up by the funicular railway, you could just walk up the stairs to avoid paying any fees. However, I do recommend paying the fee and going into the castle courtyard, the terrace, the barrel building, and apothecary museum. If you want to learn even more about the castle and see the interiors, join a guided tour which is offered in English and costs €6 additional. This is the only way you can go inside some of the rooms of the castle. Just note you are not allowed to film or take photos inside. The castle used to be the residence of the counts and electors from the house of Wittelsbach, who ruled the Palatinate of the Rhine from here for over 400 years. First mentioned in 1225, the Heidelberg Castle was destined to become one of the grandest castles of the Renaissance. Let's move on from the gardens that surround the castle and enter into the courtyard via the bridge gatehouse and the gate tower. Keep in mind that the castle is not a coherent structure, as the prince-electors over the centuries continued to add residential palaces in the respective style of their time. To the left are the older residential buildings from the Middle Ages, such as the Ruprecht building, which is the oldest surviving residential palace within the Heidelberg Castle, built in the Gothic architectural style. Located opposite the Ruprecht building is the Fountain House, which stands in front of the Soldiers' building built in the 16th century. Palace guards had their living and common rooms here. Adjacent to that is the Economic building, where the tailor, storage rooms, and kitchen were housed. Today, rustic regional dishes are served here. In the 16th and 17th centuries, the prince-electors added 2 palace buildings and turned the fortress into a castle. Under Friedrich V, the main building of the west side was erected, the so-called English building. The castle was destroyed several times during the 30 Years' War from 1618 to 1648, which was one of the most destructive conflicts in European history. And also during the 9-Year War of Succession in the late 17th century, which caused a lot of destruction at the castle and in Heidelberg in general. These catastrophic events are commemorated in a spectacular fireworks display held several times a year. I have a link in the description below with the dates and more info on that. As if things couldn't get any worse from the destruction as a result of the wars, when Prince Elector Karl Theodor tried to restore the castle, lightning struck in 1764 and the once proud residence caught fire and was left in ruins. As a result, in the following years, people would just take stones from the castle to build new houses in Heidelberg. Count Charles de Greinberg ended this in 1800 and began the process of preserving the castle. This is the Ott Heinrich building, which is one of the most beautiful and oldest palace structures of the German Renaissance. The building houses the German Apothecary Museum. It offers insights into the history of all kinds of pharmacy-related items from antiquity to the 21st century. This walkthrough exhibition shows how the healing powers of nature were used in the Middle Ages and early modern ages. This includes substances originating from plants, but also some other quite interesting remedies such as pulverized mummy, which was used to cure cough, sore throat, shivers and headache in the 16th century. Here at the center you see the Friedrich building with its richly decorated facade. Both the Friedrich and the Ott Heinrich buildings are residential palaces built in the Renaissance-style architecture and are especially eye-catching as you look around in the courtyard. In between the two buildings is the Hall of Glass, an impressive example of early Renaissance architecture connecting both the Friedrich and the Ott Heinrich building. When joining on a tour, you get to go onto the Hall of Glass, which offers a nice viewpoint overlooking the courtyard. We are now getting to the great terrace of the castle, which again provides stunning views of Heidelberg and the Neckar River. You see the Church of the Holy Spirit that we saw earlier, as well as the Karl Theodor Bridge. I also want to briefly mention here that on the other side of the Neckar River you have the option to go for a walk along the Philosophenweg, the Philosopher's Walk. You'll have some more stunning views of the Old Town, the river, the Old Bridge, the castle and the Königstuhl mountain. Alright, back at the terrace of the castle. Pay attention to the sandstone on the ground and you'll see this shoe-shaped imprint. According to legend, a lady-in-waiting was entertaining a knight in one of the rooms of the Friedrich building. Upon the discovery of the couple in flagranti, the knight is said to have leaped from the window in desperation. The iron shoe of his armor left a deep impression in the sandstone on the great terrace. In another version of the legend, it is said the knight was forced to jump due to a fire. Today, visitors of Heidelberg enjoy placing their own foot inside the imprint left by the knight's leap. If the imprint fits, the legend says that the person can expect to live a happy life. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that my foot fits very well into the imprint. Now on to the barrel building, which you can see from the Great Terrace. It was constructed in the 16th century. And now let's enter the building, which houses the world's largest wine barrel. And while you might think this right here, that must be it, well, you're wrong. This one is actually tiny compared to the largest one. The Prince Electors were quite the party animals, celebrating lively parties at the neighboring King's Hall, and the wine was pumped through a pipe directly from the barrel into the King's Hall. And here it is, the world's largest wine barrel. The first one was installed in the building's basement in 1591, holding an astonishing 130,000 liters of wine, that's 34,342 gallons. This original Great Barrel was destroyed during the 30 Years' War, and in 1664 it was replaced by a barrel with 200,000 liters capacity, or 52,834 gallons. But that's not even the one you see here, because almost 100 years later, Prince Elector Karl Theodor had the third and current barrel constructed, which holds 220,000 liters, and that's 58,117 gallons. So yeah, I don't think they ever ran out of wine at any of the festivities here. On top of the barrel you see this platform, which likely was used as a dance floor back in the day. And then down here, this is little Perkeo guarding the Great Barrel. Prince Elector Karl Philipp brought Perkeo to Heidelberg from South Tyrol in 1718 because he was impressed by his quick wit and his ability to hold his drink. Perkeo's role was to entertain the court society with his pranks and jokes. There are quite some stories about Perkeo, especially relating to his ability to hold his liquor, and legend has it that he could empty the Great Barrel in a single gulp. It was not his wine consumption that killed him, but rather an accidental consumption of a cup of water. Now, once you're done touring the castle, you have the option to either go back down to the old town by the Funicular railway or walk down the stairs, which takes about 10 to 15 minutes. I personally recommend taking the stairs down as it's a nice walk and gives you some more perspectives of the castle and Heidelberg itself. This concludes our tour of Heidelberg. I really hope this gave you some good insights into this lovely city along the Neckar River. Next, check out my Passau video, another charming city located in Bavaria where 3 rivers, including the massive Danube River, meet. And the cathedral with its spectacular organ is quite the sight to see. And with that, I say thank you and Dankeschön!